Welcome back to our 12-part recovery workout series. Dr. Teddy Wilsey here. Our first 3 workouts were focused on full range of motion, movement freedom, and concentric only exercise. The purpose of this is to reduce muscle soreness. Movement freedom is all about just kind of going out, doing what feels right. And then full range of motion is just to take your joints through that range of motion that they might not get on a weekly basis. Right now we're on week 4 of this training series, and some things might start to feel a little beat up, a little sore. For today, we're gonna focus on low back. Now with lifters, what we oftentimes see is an extension-based low back pain. So what that means is back pain or tightness when we get up after sitting for a long time, so we go from flexion to extension. This can mean back pain or tightness when you're standing for a long time, standing still especially. So let's say you're standing at the kitchen counter doing dishes. After a while, your back starts to get tight. That's extension-based low back pain. When we lift, we have to extend. That's how we create power. But if your back gets tight and kind of crampy during that, and doing things like bending down and bending over and stretching your glutes helps to relieve that pain, we're going to address it today in our recovery workout. So the first exercise we're gonna do is gonna be to try to flex the spine. So we're gonna do this through a ring squat. Now when I come down to the bottom of the squat here, I'm gonna let my butt go into that posterior pelvic tilt, kind of relax my spine into flexion, and then come back up. Once I do 10 of these reps, I'm gonna come down and do 5 deep breaths. So big breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Second movement is gonna be a pigeon stretch on a box. So this is a 24-inch box, and then I have a 6-inch topper on there, so it's 30 inches altogether. We're gonna get our leg out here. This is very similar to a figure 4 stretch. Just gonna bend over, and again, we're focusing on lumbar spine flexion, and then dropping deep into the stretch. So we're gonna switch off. We're gonna hold each of those for about 5 seconds, and back and forth for 10 reps on each side. Third exercise is going to be a reverse lunge, and it's going to be kind of paired with a hip flexor stretch. So you're going to start on, this is a 12-inch box, step back, and getting a huge stretch across my back hip flexor, while also coming into lumbar flexion. We're going to hold that for about 3 seconds, 10 on each side. So the 4th and 5th exercises are going to be from this quadruped position. The 4th one is a Cat-Camel. This is one that we did during the first series. And what we're going to do for the second series that's focused on back is to really get high with our lower back here, trying to push towards the ceiling. Once you do 10 of those reps, you're going to dig your toes into the ground and come up for a plank here. So we're maintaining this plank position in lumbar flexion. Now I know that we're doing a lot of core work in our training in general, but one unique thing about this type of core work is with your knees up, you're in a flexed lumbar spine position. Another area that we'd like to target is going to be the hips, glutes, and kind of posterior hip capsule. One of my favorite stretches for this is a modified pigeon stretch. Now the big difference between this and the more traditional yoga pigeon stretch is that I am in less total hip flexion. So my hip flexion angle is right here as opposed to this much tighter angle. Now with that, it's going to change the way I stretch posterior structures in my hip. So I'm going to come down into this modified pigeon position. I'm going to shift. So if you look this way, I'm going to shift, dropping my left hip down, and that creates more stretch. Same thing with the other side. Dropping my right hip down. To increase the stretch even more, you would reach out and away. When we have extension-based low back pain, if we were to look at things from a biomechanical standpoint, we might have tight hip flexors. Now I know in these programs we're doing a lot from the half kneeling position, but how much are we really paying attention to our core positioning while we are in half kneeling? The first thing I want to look at is, can you flex your glutes while you're in this half kneeling position? Flexing the glutes is going to rotate the hips this way, putting the anterior structures on stretch slightly. All right, so I do that, I immediately start to feel a hip flexor stretch. The second thing is if we're doing, let's say, a half kneeling press or anything like that, can we maintain this glutes flexed, excuse me, hip flexor stretched, ribs down position. So if I'm doing half kneeling right here, can I keep this down or am I gonna have to arch up? The important thing when we look at extension-based back pain is learning how to keep this down when we're reaching overhead. So it's gonna look like this. I will often teach people with a handhold right there. You saw how I have my left hand there? It's a good kind of tactile cue to just tell me what my positioning is, where I am.